Welcome to Strain on the Game, the podcast that reveals what it really takes to keep elite footballers performing at the highest level. I'm Stephen Warnock, former Premier League player, joined by physical performance expert Adrian Lamb. From training ground truths to the financial impact of fitness, we discuss the often overlooked challenges behind the beautiful game. Right, welcome back to another episode of Strain on the Game. This is a little bit of another different episode. Today, we've got another special, which is Adrian Lamb, who's an experienced strength and conditioning coach who has spent years working in elite football environments across the Premier League, Major League Soccer, and international football. Over the course of his career, he's worked with clubs including Newcastle United, Blackburn Rovers, Aston Villa, Sunderland, as well as teams in North America and the Chinese national setup. His work sits in intersections of sports science and performance, focusing on training load recovery, injury prevention, and the system that keeps professional athletes performing in the highest level. That's not bad for an intro for you, is it?
It's not bad. I think you should have added with varying degrees of success at the end of it.
Well, that was the next bit. I just missed that bit out. I thought it's not fair to do that to you.
Yeah, no. I think you've got that off my LinkedIn probably. I think that's which I've got no input into, so it's new to me that.
Yeah? Who's doing it?
As she does everything in my life now, my good wife Jamie.
All right. Well, there you go.
Well, she's in corporate America and she's like, you need to do your LinkedIn. And I'm, what?
Up your game.
Yeah, all of that. But thank you for that. Very nice, very good intro. Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, because I've scoured the internet trying to find stuff, and you are incognito, should we say?
Yeah, don't look at
which is quite surprising.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of my sort of personality, I think, which is I just like to do the job and I don't like to shout too much about it and be one of these people who puts themselves in the foreground. It's just not my game, Warnie, you know what I mean? And I know that...
Is this the way you're telling me that you want to stop doing the podcast then?
No, this is like...
What's going on here?
No, this is me explaining why it took you 6 months to persuade me to do the podcast.
Well, yeah, true.
You know, this is which is, you know, getting out of comfort zones and doing all these things. I think the podcast is a slightly different animal in that we're talking about other things rather than talking about ourselves. Ironically, I say that on the episode that I'm talking about myself. But yeah, no, it's never sat well with me, and I don't know why. I think it's part of my personality. I see other practitioners doing loads of conferences and putting things out on social media and you know, producing all kinds of great content. And that, you know, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it's just not. It's just, I mean, I look at a lot of practitioners who deliver at conferences and put things out in social media and produce research and all things. And I think, when do you have time to do that? Because for me, it was always about working with players and delivering in the club. And that was the important bit, and that was the job, and that was the bit that I loved doing. There's admittedly the social media side is now something that I do have to be much better at, and I have to bite the bullet on it. And you know, you and I have spoken about that, and there is certainly a Chinese New Year's resolution that I'm gonna get better at doing that because I think it is important in the environment that we're in now.
So, dun, 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 dun. I feel like this is an episode of This Is Your Life because I think we're gonna learn a little bit more about you today. So, for the listeners who haven't listened or haven't listened to certain episodes, you are a farmer's boy. You grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
So give us just a little bit of background on your early life and how ultimately you ended up getting into football.
Right, yeah. I think one of the interesting things with all the guests that we've spoken to is the diverse backgrounds they've come from, and they've not necessarily come from football backgrounds. I'm certainly one of those. Like you said, born and raised on a farm, in
In
Cumbria.
Cumbria, yeah.
Yeah, Western Lake District. So, and how did that shape me
Do you
as
wanna
a
tell everyone the name of the place?
well, yeah, I mean, there is the farm is next door to the Sellafield nuclear installation, which is the
Explains a
biggest
lot.
nuclear installation in in Europe, but it's never done me any harm. We make jokes about that, yeah. At Christmas time, you get seven people round the table, one turkey, and everyone gets a leg. That sort of ha ha ha. That sort of joke. Well, yeah. So it's up there on the clinging to the west coast of Cumbria, and anyone who's had that sort of farming background will know that it shapes you in a particular way. So
Yeah,
values that I had learned growing up. The value of hard work, because if you're a farmer, then hard work is, it's a given. It's a
yeah,
it's it's a necessity. You don't get anywhere without working hard. And then also understanding that you don't get a well done for working hard. It's just that's the minimum standard. But there are other things as well that I think were important to me. Um, we've talked previously about values and human values and honesty being an important part of that. You've got to be honest if you're working on a farm, if you've got a farming background, because you can't. Have you fed the sheep? Yeah. And then
yeah.
2 days later, all the sheep are dead, died of starvation. You can't lie that, did you sow that field of barley? Yeah. And then there's no seed all of these things sort of playing it. So honesty, integrity, hard work, and also, the hard part of life in that bad things are gonna happen. Bad things happen on farms every day, and there's loads and loads of stories I could tell you that, and learning to deal with those setbacks, whether that be you've got a really, really valuable cow that dies, has a fit and dies 3 days before you sell it, which is something that happened to my dad, and it's
Right.
like watching how your dad sort of deals with that, because that is a tragedy. That is a massive tragedy on a farm, because it was one of the best animals that he'd ever bred, and then it just didn't live anymore. And he was like, "Well, it's gone now. There's nothing we can do about that. It's gone." So learning to deal with adversity, I think, is part of that. So there's loads of, look, they're all cliched things about farmers and
Yeah.
but the cliches because they're true. So then my sort of pathway into football was, I naturally assumed that my dad was a farmer, his dad was a farmer, his dad was a farmer. The surname Lamb is Lamb for a reason. We've all been farmers
Yeah,
for
yeah.
throughout history. And so I naturally assumed that that was gonna be my career path. And then I did okay at school, I did quite well in my GCSEs. My mum was really, adamant that I would go and do my A-levels, so I would have that. And I was really, at that point in my life, everybody was leaving school. All my friends and people that I was close to were leaving school to take up jobs at Sellafield, and
Right.
apprenticeships. They would become apprentice welders and fitters and instrument mechanics. So the area that I grew up in is a real interesting mix of heavy industry and agriculture. So we had the shipbuilding down in Barrow, you had the steelworks at the time at Workington, we had the chemical works up in Whitehaven, and everybody was leaving to take up apprenticeships there, and I went back and I'd sort of fallen out of love with school. It wasn't interesting, and I thought, "There's no real point in me doing this because I'm gonna work on the farm."
Yeah.
I did well in my GCSEs, I didn't do quite so well in my A-levels, if I'm being honest, because my heart wasn't in it, and I wanted to start moving on with my life. And it got to a point where I'd done my A-levels and did okay, and, I said to my dad, "Look," literally, I said, "How much are you gonna pay me?" Because we hadn't had that conversation. He's like,
Really?
What do you mean?" Because I'm working all through the summer, because you're
Yeah.
just working through the holidays, working and you get home at sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon from school, you're straight back out feeding sheep, shoveling shit, doing all the bits. And he was like, "What do you mean? How much am I going to pay you? I'm not going to pay you anything. What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, I'm going to start working here full time, aren't I?" And he went, "No, no, 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 no. You're not working here."
Really?
Yeah, he's like, this isn't for you." And at the time, I thought it was. I wasn't sure why, because it was just, that avenue's closed. You're not doing this. Um, and we never really had that conversation because we don't have those conversations with our fathers always, do we? Looking back, I think he thought he didn't want me to have the life that he'd had.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say that to you. Was there a pressure from your dad to actually go into the farming
The
industry? But
opposite.
the
The
absolute
opposite.
opposite, which is really interesting, isn't it? Because, like you
Yeah,
say, your family have all done it. So why wouldn't you follow that path?
yeah. I think he's probably saw what his life had been and the challenges and all of that. He probably saw that I had an opportunity to do something different, and he wanted me to take that.
But did you have at the time, or did he just
Yeah.
feel that you were more suited to something different because of your personality?
Don't know. Don't know. Never had that conversation.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because he felt there was something there that
Yeah,
wasn't right for you.
yeah. So that was that, and then so I'm like, "What do I do now?" And I was like, I'd left school, I'd done my and for the life of me, I don't know why I did this, and I haven't got a good answer, but I joined the Merchant Navy. I went in the Merchant Navy, yeah, so I did that, and if you blink, you'll miss my naval career because it was, like, less than a year, so I did we were on, bulk carriers, which are
Okay.
the big container the big, ships that we were bringing coal and iron ore into the steelworks from
So
all
how
over the
old are you
world.
at this point?
I'm 18.
Right.
I'm 18. Yeah, so I've done my A-levels and I've left school. Um, and just through I suppose my mother's side of the family had a naval attachment. My grandfather was a shipbuilder on my mother's side. My his brother had been in the Navy, so there were these sort of romanticised stories about the Navy, and I thought, "Yeah, I'll give that a go." So I went in the Merchant Navy. It wasn't for me, you're 18 and you're 18, you think you're a man, you're not a man. Missed home, missed me mum, all of that stuff. First
Did you?
time away from home, massive learning curve in terms of who you are. And then I came back, I came out of that, left there, and then I sort of bounced around jobs. So I was a delivery driver for a cash and carry firm for a bit. I worked on the forestry, I was, cleaning out trees and doing all of that. I'd do
Yeah.
bits of farm labour where I'd go around different farms doing bits of jobs. And then I got to a point where I was 20 and I thought, yeah, I'm probably ready to go to university. If I'd gone to university straight from school, then I would have pissed it up the wall. I'd have
Yeah.
been I'd have I wasn't I had no interest. I'd sick of being at school. Been at school since I was 4 years old, didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. I
Wanted
think
to
there's a
earn
lot of
money.
people can relate to that though, can't they?
Yeah, wanted to step on with my life, but I didn't know what that looked like. Thought it was gonna be farming, wasn't farming. Right, what else? Let's see what comes our way. Didn't really know, and then got to a point where I thought, "Actually, I think university is probably gonna be because life is hard, life is
Yeah.
tough." I remember I was earning £115 a week, right, as a delivery driver,
Yeah.
WBG cash and carry in Whitehaven, and I could if I worked every hour God sends, that's as much as I could earn. So, I was like, "Life is fucking hard. Let's see if university's got a pathway." So I looked into that, and I thought sports science popped up. And sports, studying sport, that's like, well, that's fascinating. That's really, really interesting. Um, Sporting wise, I was a rugby player. I played
I was
rugby.
gonna
That was,
say, Cumbria
yeah.
is predominantly rugby, isn't it?
Yeah, rugby league, rugby union. Although we do have a hotbed of goalkeeper production. Some of the
You certainly do, by the way.
unbelievable goalkeepers come out of West Cumbria. Tony Caig, who I was at Newcastle with,
Yeah.
brilliant. Dane Henderson now. you know, and your mate Scott
Scott
Carson.
Carson.
Oh,
Incredible, isn't
somehow
it?
we've got this production line of goalkeepers. But yeah, so rugby was my sport, and I wasn't a good rugby player. I wasn't particularly skillful. I wasn't particularly big, but I was fit. So
Yeah.
fitness was my thing. So I was interested in the sports science aspect and things. Just
Did you know anything about it?
nah,
Or
not
was it
really.
just, it's sports science and
It's
it's
sports
linked to
science.
sports?
I've got a real interest in fitness and performance, and I knew it was always about the performance side of fitness that interested me because it fired something up in me,
Got you.
rather than the sort of participation fitness. You know, the general population fitness didn't really spark anything in me, but sport and performance sport. And there
Yeah.
weren't fitness coaches then. There was no such thing. But there was sports science degrees, so it was in the embryonic stage of sports science. So I applied to 3 or 4 institutions. I think I applied to Manchester, Sheffield. Northumbria University was the one that I really wanted to go to. Newcastle was a really vibrant city, and I'm a country bumpkin, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
live in the middle of nowhere. Newcastle, being driven by the success of the football team, was a vibrant city because it was Kevin Keegan and the Entertainers. This is 1996 now. So I applied and I was playing County 21's rugby. So off the back of that, I got accepted onto the course. And then I went and I was 1 month shy of my 21st birthday. So I'd been out of school and academia for a couple of years. I'd grown as a person, I'd grown as an individual. Now I was heading back into it. And then I started doing the sports science. The way that the course was structured was really, really good and really interesting, which was there were 3 kind of branches. There was sports management, which was management and marketing. Um, there was sports development, which was kind of grassroots coaching and kids coaching and all of that. And there was sports science. And in the first year, you got a taste of everything before you specialised in your second and third year. Really, really cleverly put together, this course was. And so it was always the sports science that interested me. And then in the second and third year, you could specialise. You elected which ones you were going to go into,
Okay.
or you could do kind of a hybrid one of which was called sports studies, where you could pick and choose, like a pick and mix of which elements from different courses you want to do, and you come out with a sports studies degree. So when I looked at it, the sports science was obviously what I wanted to do because it was the performance, the physiology, the biomechanics, all of that, the nutrition. But what I didn't like was the psychology. I didn't
Okay.
like the psychology. And I look back at it now and it's really, really interesting. I think it was because I didn't like the lecturer. I think I just
Really?
didn't, yeah, it just didn't kind
It's
of,
interesting, isn't it?
it didn't land with me.
Yeah.
So, but I liked one of the sports management lecturers, and what he had to say was really, I found it interesting. So I did kind of 80%, I did a sports studies degree in the end, and 80% of it was the sports science component made up of physiology, biomechanics, nutrition, all of those. And then I did the sports management bit, which paid dividends later on in my career because there was managing people and managing facilities was
Yeah.
part of that. But
Oh, yeah.
I neglected the psychology part. Went through that process, and there's a sliding doors moment within that 3-year degree, which I'll talk about later because it's recognizing opportunities that change your life
Yeah, yeah.
and lead you to why you and I are now sat down talking to each other. There's an inflection point in everyone's life, and I can sort of identify it. Get to the end of that 3-year course, and the university that I was at, Northumbria University, I think there were 96 people on my program, and there were no jobs at the end of it, really. There was 1 or 2. But the universities was starting to move. University sport was starting to become much more professional and elite and driving excellence and driving performance. So
Yeah.
they had they produced 6 jobs, sport development jobs, but it was more than sport development. One of them was in the area of performance development, and everybody on the course applied for it.
Can
Everybody on the floor,
imagine.
it was like, nah. And so there was one that was based around netball, one that was based around participation sport, one that was based around football, and that was where I met Steve Baharrell.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was Steve. There were a couple, but one of them was his performance, and I ended up getting the job.
Wow.
I ended up getting the job, and I really didn't know why. But this is a story that I'm going to come back to. So I was at Northumbria University for 18 months at Team Northumbria, um, and came into contact with some people who went on in the early stages of their career, who went on to be top athletes. A lot of rugby players. So Jamie Noon was there. I don't know if you remember him. He was an England international rugby player.
I
Victoria.
don't, because I'm not a massive rugby fan.
Yeah, well, a lot of rugby players because there was a relationship with Newcastle Falcons, as they
Got you.
were then. Victoria Pendleton, the cyclist.
Another, yeah, cyclist, yeah,
She comes
Olympian.
into the gym one day and she says, I'm a decent cyclist. Can we start putting some strength work together?" And so
Wow.
I had a little input into her in her sort of first year at university, and there were
Get that one quiet. I've not heard that one before.
yeah, well, yeah, I mean, I guarantee she wouldn't remember who I was, but watching her career take off. So I would do a little bit of work with her for probably about 6 months, I would think, where there would
I
be
bet she
me and
does remember you.
I
I
wouldn't
bet
think,
she would. 100% she would.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. We can't remember everything. I mean, the people who have had input into her career subsequently have
No, I
had an
know, but someone
awful.
at the right at the
Yeah.
very start, I bet she does.
Well, there was myself, and there was one of the lecturers, Phil Hayes, who had probably a bigger input into her. But yeah, so she was there, and a number of other um, people who went on to be professionals. So I was
Yeah.
there 18 months. I'd started doing some bits with the Newcastle Eagles basketball team, again through the university, and that brought brought me to the attention of Durham University, and Durham University had a much higher quality program in terms of sport, and they'd opened this human performance unit, um, and part of that was the whole premise of it was to raise the performance of the athletes, the student athletes, but also it had to be self-funding. So we worked with external clients. So the external clients we worked with were North of England Rugby. Um, we worked with Hartlepool United. We worked with various other teams, but one of them was Newcastle United Academy. So
Mhm.
that's where I started doing some bits with Newcastle United Academy. So they were based at Maiden Castle, which back in the day, Newcastle United first team would train there. They were then training at Chesterley Street, and the academy had moved into Maiden Castle using the facilities. So that the academy team were there all the time. And in those
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
if you remember, the academies then was 17s and 19s. So there was a 17s team which was run by Kenny Wharton, under 19s team with Alan Irvine, and
Yeah,
I
no,
would do
well.
little bits and pieces. But they also had like the under 9s, the under 10s, the under 11s, and so I started doing little bits with them, and then it became a little bit more, and then it became a little bit more, and it became a little bit more. And then after 18 months at Durham, one of my former lecturers at Northumbria, this guy Phil Hayes, again, he got in touch with me and said, "There's a job going at Leicester Tigers." And obviously my rugby background from playing rugby, he
Yeah,
said
yeah.
and sports science was now starting to take off, and fitness coaches were now starting to become a thing. And this is 2001, 2002. So he said, "I think you should apply. Eh, I think you'd be in with a chance."
What is the role? Is it a fitness coach?
Academy fitness coach, so under
Yeah.
18s. Yeah, great. So I'm 3 years into my career now, 18 months at Northumbria, 18 months at Durham. And I've gone, right, great, applied, went down to Leicester. had an interview, 2-day interview, loved it, just loved the experience of being around performance people. One of the other candidates who's since become a good friend of mine, a guy called John Webb, he'd been doing the job sort of part-time in the same way that I'd been doing with Newcastle United Academy. He'd been doing there, so I thought, pressure's off.
You'll get it.
He's a tap-in. He's a tap-in. I end up getting offered the job. So I get offered this job at Leicester Tigers. And I'm like, and Leicester Tigers, just to explain to people who don't know, at that time were the kings of Europe, European champions, back-to-back Premiership champions. Brilliant. Bloody hell, this is, and now I'm on my way, right? So suddenly I'm in. I get a phone call about 2 weeks before. So I'm working my notice at Durham. I'm about probably 2 weeks away from moving to Leicester. Get a phone call from Newcastle. We've heard you going to Leicester. Tigers? Yeah. Brilliant. I thought, that's nice. I'm getting. How would you feel about coming into us full time? How do you mean? We like what you do. We like what you've done with the team. We think we're in a place now where we see value in a fitness coach coming in, working with the academy full time. What do you think about it? And I'm like, shit.
Wow.
You know, so
Big
that's
moments, big decision.
big moment, big decision. And it felt right, which
Was
was,
that because you've been in the environment though, and you knew everyone? It was
yeah,
almost like a little bit of a comfort blanket, like,
yeah,
I know what I'm going into, whereas Leicester's a little bit different.
yeah. I think that definitely played into it. But on the other side of that, it was also, I don't have a lot of I don't have any experience in football. And in terms of mapping out fitness plans, rugby, I've got that boxed off because I played the game, so I understand the game. Not to a high level, but I've played. Um, Football's a little bit different. I played football, recreationally football, you know, but football's different. So as a fitness coach, in a way, it's more of a challenge. So it's less comfortable than going to do rugby.
Yeah.
So there was lots and lots of things that played into that decision. And in the end, I decided, yeah, I'm gonna stay. I think the other part was rugby. For all the great things that rugby does, is it's always going to be a lesser sport than football.
Yeah.
And I felt that in terms of a career pathway, I thought football would potentially open up more avenues, and there'd be greater growth potential in a career in football. But then the other side of it was football is very transient, and you can lose your job very, very quickly in football.
Yeah.
So look, there was, and I never made a list or anything, but I've always tried to follow my gut, and I think that football felt right. And it was like when you think, if it feels more comfortable, then yeah, I'll do that. It just felt right, so I did, and that was
How
me, Newcastle
how
United.
did that go down with Leicester? How did you tell them?
Brilliant. Oh, that's worst. I mean, I've had to make some bad phone calls in my time, mate. I really have. But like
Yeah.
difficult choices, and you want to.
I mean, because you're young as well, aren't
I'm
you? You're
young.
new to the new to the
Yeah.
game, and you
What am I
feel
now?
sometimes like you might have burnt a bridge somewhere as well.
Yeah, definitely. So the guy's name was Pete Atkinson, who was a head fitness coach at Leicester at the time. And I dialed the number and hung up probably 4 or 5 times. Like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? So I phoned him up. Couldn't have been better. He
Really?
couldn't. He's like, look, I get it. I get it. No problem. Um, it is a problem because now we've got to go back out,
Yeah.
but you've got to do what's right for you. He could not have been. He could not have been better. And I actually saw him at a conference probably about 18 months later. I was like, oh, this is a bit awkward. This is a bit.
Yeah.
Saw him in the gents in the men's toilet, like washing hands.
Brilliant.
He's like, oh, you. I want. He's like, you bastard. And he's went, how you doing? I was like, yeah, good. I was like, okay, I'm really sorry about. He says, what are you sorry for? Don't be sorry. And he was, and actually these little experiences and these moments in your life you learn, because
Yeah.
then years later when you're in the position that he's then in, and then somebody says that to you, you know how to react to make somebody feel right. So there was
And you also know how difficult it is for someone to make a decision.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. There's loads of things that go into it. So yeah, that was me, Newcastle, and that was my way in. There's the story that I sort of want to tell a little bit is, so how did I get that? There's a saying that I quite like, which is, people said when I got that job coming out of Northumbria, which everybody applied for, coming out of graduation, and I get the job, and everybody's applied for it, and everyone says, you're dead lucky. And I was really lucky. And years later, I heard this saying, and it was Gordon Strachan, actually. This is on the television. I don't know Gordon Strachan, but he said something, and it really landed with me, that luck, the definition of luck, is the meeting place of preparation and opportunity. Right. So if you prepare yourself properly and you do the work, and this goes back to the farm, working hard is a given, and you don't get well dones for working hard. So I took that into my academic career, and I wasn't academic. I wasn't naturally academic. I had to work at it. So the way that the physiology, sports science program was structured was that you would have a lecture on the Monday morning. It's always Monday morning at 9 o'clock. It was a nightmare. Monday morning, 9 o'clock, you had a lecture, and it would be on a particular topic, whatever it might be, energy systems or whatever. And then, and this is this guy, Phil Hayes, that I've spoken about a couple of times already. He would set you 3 or 4 readings based on that lecture. And the readings was, you got a list, you had to go to the library, you had to find the index cards. No internet in that day, Stephen. We didn't have that. They don't know the bone, these students now. You had to find the book that the reading was in. You had to photocopy it. You know the Peter Kay sketch when he's saying, your mother had to load the dishwasher. Look at his face. He doesn't know what he's saying. I feel like I'm getting into that sort of territory now. Photocopy it, read it, highlight bits that were important, and he would set questions based on the readings. Okay. And then the questions, so you'd have that lecture, the seminar, which would come after the lecture, was on the previous week's lecture, and it was on the material the reading material that he had set, and the questions that he had set were openings for discussion points around that material. And as time went on, Phil sort of got the impression that a lot of people weren't doing the readings, so he would ask the questions, and I'm not saying mine was the only hand that was going up, but I was doing the work because because one, I loved it and I found it really, really interesting. 2, I'd been in the real world and I'd worked for a couple of years and I wasn't keen on going back. So I knew this was something that if I was going to do it, I was going to do it properly. And then we have that work ethic kind of background. So I'm doing the work because I think, well, this is what I'm here to do. So we get to this is the sort of inflection point moment in my life where Phil gets to the front of the lecture theatre and he says, okay, look, who's done the readings? Who's done the readings? Be honest, because if you haven't done the readings, there's really no point you being here. And there's no problem if you haven't done the readings, right? But if you haven't, and there would probably be about, in that particular class, probably about maybe 20 people. And I'm the only one who's done the readings, and nobody else's hand's gone up.
Really?
And he said, right, can you lot please leave? Can you lot please leave? You stay there. Right. So everybody, and he sits down, and I remember this like for the rest of my life. He said, what did you think about the readings? I said, I didn't have a clue. I could not make head nor tail of them. He said, good, that was deliberate. I set that so that to kind of sort out,
people out,
to kind of not catch people out, but to see what we had. And he said, right, sit down there. And we worked through for an hour, these readings. Warnie, I was sweating spinal fluid. It was, it, it felt like I come out of that, I was absolutely exhausted, just mentally
Really?
exhausted, because we were working through these real, pretty high level stuff, and we went through it. And he was asking questions. He said, "What do you think about that?" And I said, "I think." He says, "What do you think of that?" I think it's this. And he's like, "Yeah, that's a good spot. You spotted that. That's good. But look at it from this angle and think about this." And this is all physiology, and it's pretty high level stuff. So this was in my second year. Right, brilliant. So when I 3 years later was leaving, I got that job at Northumbria University, and then I was leaving to go to Durham, and I went to see Phil because I'd continued, like, one 1 hour a week. I would go and see him and have a cup of tea and
It's
talk
like a
about.
mentor.
He was my mentor. He was my mentor. He helped me so much in that first sort of, not only as a student, but working. And I would be like, "What should I be reading to do this? What should I be reading? What should I?" I've always had this thing, and I still do it now, where I need to read an hour a day on my job, because sports science moves on so quickly and things are
Yeah,
always
yeah.
coming out. And as time's gone by, you know, a lot of the same stuff comes back and gets regurgitated. So, but I had that hour a week with Phil and all the rest of it. And then I was leaving to go to Durham, and I saw another lecturer, um, Kev, I forget his second name, but and he was like, "I've heard you're leaving. I've heard you're going to Durham. Brilliant. Good luck." And he said, "Do you know why you got the job?" No, no idea. He said, "They came to us as a group of lecturers and said, 'Who should we employ? We've got these names have applied. Who should we employ?'" And it was that moment with Phil that changed my life, that hour.
Really?
Because now I'm on the
Wow.
radar. So
Yeah.
now I'm on the radar. So why am I lucky? I'm lucky because I've done the work, preparation, opportunity. And sometimes, so the people I'm thankful for are the people that gave me the opportunities.
Yeah.
But I was always prepared to take advantage of those opportunities when they came along. And I really believe in that. And that's what I think luck is. And sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're unlucky, but you do the work, do the work. When the opportunities come, if you're in a position to take advantage of it, then you'll be lucky. And that was something I saw Gordon Strachan say on the television years and years ago, and it landed with me, and I've always thought about it. So that
Brilliant.
was it. That was it. That was me on the road.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way of looking at it, though, isn't it? Because if you aren't prepared, then like you say, those opportunities won't afford themselves because people won't be watching you. And there are elements of luck, but I'm with you. I
Yeah,
think I think it falls into your path because of the right reason, because you've worked hard and you deserve that chance or you deserve something. Um, okay, so now you've moved into the academy at Newcastle,
yeah.
and it was a new role, as you say. How did you? What was your ambition when you got that job? Was there an ambition, or was it just I'm at Newcastle? This is a big opportunity for me, and I'm just going
Yeah,
to enjoy my time and see where it takes me.
a little bit of that, but I had the view that I would like to get to the first team, was, the pathway that was open to me. And the guy who was the first team fitness coach there, who I learned so much from, was a guy called Paul Winsper. Was fantastic fitness coach, unbelievable fitness coach.
And
And
sorry, just to interrupt, was there still just one person at the first team as well?
yeah, one at the first team and then one at the academy. So the role was this is the best job I ever had in my life. So there would be occasions when I'd go up and help Windy with the first team. And it would be, so you work with the 17s or the 19s, which then sort of amalgamated and became the 18s. So you work with them in the morning, do all the activation, whatever the morning looks like and the warm up. And then, that usually is over and done with by about 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then a couple of days a week, 3 days a week, I'd go up. I don't know if you're familiar with the setup at Newcastle, but there'll be an academy, and then you kind of see the first team. It's two separate kind of sites, but you can
Yeah.
see the first team, and that was, I think, done deliberately. Where if you're an academy player, you can see where you want to be, and as an academy coach, if you've got that, if you harbour ambitions to work with the first team, you can see it. So I'd walk up to the first team, and there would be bits and pieces that he would want me to do. So help out with the gym, help out with an injured player might need looking after. So, it might be we talked last week about Craig Bellamy. So it'd be like, Bellas is being a pain in the ass. You go you go and work with it. You know
You
what I
can
mean?
deal with him.
You go and spot him on his bench press because he's trying to do a PB again, that
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
stuff. And so I would be in and around the first team players. And then obviously pre-season, I would be a lot more involved, and I'd actually, I'd deliver to small groups and groups of players. And the names, this is a Newcastle United team that were in the Champions League, that had finished um, fourth the previous year. That year they finished third. The manager is Sir Bobby Robson. You've got unbelievable characters around the dressing room. You've got Gary Speed, you've got Shay Given, Jonathan Woodgate came in during that time. You've got great people like Robbie Elliott, Aaron Hughes, all of the, and then you've got the Kieran Dyers and the Craig Bellamy, and then you've got God, Alan Shearer,
Yeah.
who's there, and you're in and around that. So my exposure was kind of drip fed into it, and it was brilliant.
How did you feel going from the academy up to the first team? And because it's a different skill set, isn't it? Dealing with young
Yeah,
academy players and then first team players.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they test you every single day, first team players, and I shit myself. And I'll remember we did the first time I got involved with the first team was I'd been in the role about maybe 3 or 4 days. We would do a pre-season session on the beach at the Long Sands at Tynemouth, and half the group would do interval running along the beach, and half the group would do a circuit. And Paul Winspoon said, "Right, you're going to do the circuit, and I'm going to do the run, right?" And and he's left me with the big hitters. So I've got Speedo, and I've got Alan Shearer, and I've got all of these. Every fibre in my body was saying, "Go home. This is too much for you. You don't belong here." That's
Really?
the inner monologue. Fucking, you don't have to do this, This is because I'm now so far out the comfort zone that I can't see the comfort zone anymore. The
Yeah.
comfort zone is a dot to me, and it's 20 miles away. And I'm like, and genuinely, it's like, right, get on with it. Just fucking get on with it. Stop being a soft ass
Yeah.
and do your job. Right.
It's
So,
surprising. That's surprising for me to hear that because you are a very confident person and you trust your ability. But I get it because you've
yeah,
gone from a university academy to working with big name players.
yeah, like world class players, like
Yeah,
players that you watch on television, and all of a sudden I'm there. But they're just people, right? And they're just,
exactly.
and they're not, and they were testing me. They would put it on my toes, you know, unbelievably. I think it's not really for me to say what I'm good at and not good at, and what my strengths and weaknesses are. But I think I've got a personality that I can deal with that. I've got,
100%.
I think I rely on a bit of a sense of humour, which sometimes doesn't quite go the way that I planned it. And
I
sometimes,
don't know about that.
oh, I made a joke with Mark Viduka once, and I thought he's going to tear my. He took it completely the wrong way.
Did he?
Yeah, there was Viduk's great lad, and I love him. He was fantastic, but he was 95% easygoing Australian, 5% Croatian. I'm going to kill everybody.
Really?
Um, and we were in the gym doing a session, and Viduk's is talking about, we were talking about rugby, and there's a rugby league show in Australia, the Footy Show, and he was like, "Yeah, I was on it. They got me. They were getting me to I think they were getting him to take penalties with a rugby ball, which
Okay.
was the crack. And somebody said, "Oh, how did you get on?" And I went, "He pulled his hammy because he was struggling with injuries at the time." And I was like, "High five, everybody!" High five, like. And Verdukes went, "Face just walked out the gym."
Did he?
Yeah, walked out the gym, and it's 2 days of frostiness in the warm-ups. And
Wow.
fortunately, Stephen Carr played the United Nations role, and he brokered a truce. And
Really?
I was wrong, wasn't I? So I apologise. Look, I'm sorry. I was out of order. I was trying to be funny,
Yeah.
and
It
I
was funny, but you couldn't take it.
well, I couldn't say that, could I? Because that would have made things worse. So
Yeah.
yeah, so things like that. So yeah, having a sense of humour, not taking myself seriously, but taking the work seriously. Um, all of these things have been part of it's part of the job, the art of the science. I mean, you tell me, fitness coaches, you work with millions of them. But what are the good ones and what are the bad ones? I think one, you need to know your job,
Yeah.
but I think there's a personality component.
Like, gotta be likable straight away. If you're not likable, lads won't buy into it.
Yeah.
If you don't know your stuff, there's no chance. But yeah, if you give a personality and you're good round people, it's
Yeah.
easier. Not easy, but it goes a long, long way.
Yeah. So that was part of it. And being able to give it back in the right way at the right
Yeah,
time,
yeah,
have
yeah.
a comeback. There was I remember at Sunderland we had James Vaughan. Vaughan is a good lad, but he was chirpy. So and he'd gone through a bit of a dry spell scoring goals. And we're doing the warm up and he's starting to give me a bit. And he'd scored at the weekend. So I've give it, "Oh, scored a goal, have you? You you're a bit confident, are you? Scored a goal, have you?" And the other lads are now shifting away from "let's jump on Lammy" to "let's jump on Varney," and that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
again, that could have gone wrong, couldn't he? Varney could have, what but Varney, he was all right. So sometimes it's risk reward, isn't it? When you're
yeah.
trying to give a bit back and trying to be a bit witty. But I think having a personality. So yeah, that early time at Newcastle with these big characters, you need to be able to do the job and you need to know what you're talking about, but you also need to have a little bit of if you're delivering and you're in there working with players, you need to have something about you. That
Yeah.
little bit of a personality, which I don't know if that's, again, we go back to me origins on the farm, if that kind of came from there or whether it was inherent within me. I don't know, but yeah, so that was Newcastle.
So what made you leave and end up at Blackburn? Obviously, we joined up at Blackburn. And how did that happen and how did that come about?
So I was 4 years in the academy, and then when Paul Winsper left, under Glenn Roeder, actually, and Glenn had been academy director, and then when Graham Souness left, he became interim manager, and then he got the job full time. Paul Winsper left. Glenn took me up with the first team full time then, um, and then brilliant because I knew Glenn from working with him in the academy, and he was great. Loved him, God rest his soul. Um, and then Glenn had a bit of a sticky time in his year that he was there. Not
Yeah.
entirely his fault. I was suddenly in the spotlight a little bit, being at the first team, and then Sam came in and brought his whole entourage with him. So there's that moment then of, am I staying or am I going?
Yeah, yeah.
And that was
And
my first.
is that the first time?
That's the first interaction with Sam. So he's come in through the summer, and you don't hear anything. Your phone's not going. And then his head of performance was a guy called Mark Taylor. And Taylor phones me up, and we have a little conversation. And he sort of quickly decides he's bringing in Mark Howard's coming in, and I see all these. You see on Sky Sports News, Mark Howard's left Bolton. All these people are leaving Bolton. There's only one place they're going, and they're coming in. So I think, what does that mean for me? And Sam's thing was, I want to add on. I don't want to take away. But if you're not up to standard,
Scratch.
then you'll
Yeah.
be gone. So he gave me the opportunity to fail. Then the club got took over.
Yeah.
So Freddie Shepherd had appointed Sam, and then Freddie, I don't know if you remember, he was really, really ill for a while, and then during his illness, the club got took over by Mike Ashley, and then everything changed, and things got put on hold in terms of transfers. So Sam couldn't get the players in that he wanted. There was a sort of transient phase of the club, and it felt initially things are going positive, things are going to be great, things are going to be really, really good. Um, and then it got sticky again, and Sam left in we played Stoke in a FA Cup game, and then after Stoke, Sam lost his job the next day. We
Yeah.
drew with Stoke, who were a championship side at the time. Kevin Keegan came in, you know, a great person,
Legend.
unbelievable personality. If I'm being honest, I don't think he was really into the sports science much. I don't think he really valued it. I think
Yeah.
that was just his way, and all of that. And the sports science performance, as we now call it, and integrating all of that. I think there was a little bit of a pendulum shift from Sam bringing everything from Bolton and sort of imposing it into Newcastle,
Mm.
and sort of trying to recreate very, very quickly something which had taken him a long time to get to a point at Bolton where it was probably the best sports science department in the Premier League at that time and the envy of the Premier League.
Yeah.
He wanted to recreate that straight away, and it, and that
It
meant
takes time.
it was a lot of people. It was a culture shock for the club. This is what it takes. This is what high performance looks like. I think there was a little shift away from that. The pendulum swung the other way, and suddenly a lot of the sports science, to put it in that way, was kind of not marginalized, but it wasn't as important. So there was that shift. I wasn't really sure what was happening with me. Loved Kevin Keegan, great guy, but I probably, as a sports scientist, probably didn't see the value in having me
I
around.
was going to say you weren't really utilised to the biggest
Yeah, yeah.
your strengths.
Which is fine. The manager has to be the manager.
But
So
that
that was
demotivates though, doesn't it?
yeah, a little bit, where you think, well, I've been doing this for 2 years and I love it and I think I'm good at it. So what's next? There was an opportunity. So I'd come to the that I think I need to move on from Newcastle, and it seemed as though things were going a little bit downhill, not through Kevin Keegan, but other things were going downhill at Newcastle. I felt like the club wasn't moving in that sort of in a direction where it wasn't the same club that I'd joined in 2002. So this is now 2008. You know what I mean? And I go back to it and I say it all the time: follow your gut.
Yeah.
And it just felt like I might need to move on. There was an opportunity to potentially get a job in the States, which interested me, and I came over here then to explore that, but it never sort of transpired. Nigel Pearson, he phoned me up. Nigel Pearson had become manager of Leicester, and I loved Nige. We've got to get him on here, mate. He is the best.
He's a great fella, isn't he?
He is the best. Totally misunderstood. The public persona of Nige and what he really is. And
Yeah.
by the way, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. Like, so smart, so intuitive, emotional intelligence. First year I worked with him, I hated him. Absolutely
Really?
hated him. He was on me like you wouldn't believe. He was on me like you wouldn't believe. And we butted heads quite. There was one
Yeah.
moment where I'm in the gym. I'm working with Duffer, Scotty Parker, and Stephen Carr, and we're doing a session in the afternoon. And there's a meeting on that I'm supposed to be in. It's about pre-season, but I don't know it's on because our communication system wasn't particularly good. Nobody's told me this meeting's going on. Nige storms in the gym, storms in, and he monsters me in front of the three players. Scotty Parker's the captain of the club, monsters me. Get the tail doesn't wag the fucking dog. Get it. And he's like, don't be getting close to players and all of this stuff. And I
Wow.
go in the meeting and I'm foaming, like shaking with
Yeah,
anger.
yeah.
And the meeting goes on, and I don't contribute anything to this meeting, pre-season planning meeting. I don't contribute a thing because there's steam coming out of my ears. And then afterwards, I've said, I'm going to have to fucking deal with this. So I've said, and he's actually preempted it, and he's come to me and he said, I shouldn't have spoken to you that way in front of players. And he's fucking burst my balloon, hasn't he? Because I was going to go, don't talk to me.
Ready.
Oh, fucking hell. No, you shouldn't have. Yeah, that was bad. You shouldn't have done that. And he was like, from that moment on, we had a fairly frank exchange of views.
Yeah.
From that moment on, me and him were very, very, very close. Really, like, tight. And he took me to
Crazy, that, isn't it?
yeah, a moment of honesty. You
Yeah,
know, we
yeah.
talk about honesty and getting things out and not holding grudges and not festering, but being true to yourself, and cliches, but they're true, aren't they? So yeah, so me and Nigel had a little we had a little argument, and then we made up, and then we were great together. Like, and I love Nigel. So he's gone into Leicester, and I'm sort of in a bit of a no. I thought I was going to go to Fulham.
All right.
I'd got offered a job off Fulham, and then
First team.
yeah, because Howard had gone down to Fulham.
Couldn't see you in London.
Oh, can you imagine that?
Smoke. No chance. The farmer boy in London.
I was a man lost in Newcastle at the time. No, I think it was Fulham. So I thought I was going to Fulham because Mark Taylor, who I'd worked with at Newcastle, was at Fulham, and we were going, and then that fell through. So I went to Leicester, and I was at Leicester for a while. Really short, and I loved it. Brilliant, League One, and I thought, this is, you come out of you're coming out of the Premier League, and everybody thinks, oh, League One, and I think this actually suits me more. This is actually better for me, because the players are everything. There's no massaging egos. There's no everybody here for the same. So, Nige, Craig Shakespeare was the assistant manager. Again, God rest his soul. What a great, great guy Shakey was.
Yeah.
Funny, yes, funny. Mike Stowell and Dave Rennie was physio, and it was brilliant. But it was a long way from home, and it was a long way from Cumbria, and my gran got sick, and there was some issues in and around the farm, and I felt like I needed to be closer to home. I've always had that kind of push and pull, where I want to go and see things and travel the world and see things, but I've always had that at the same time a pull to come back to the farm. It's weird. So it's a push pull thing that I've always sort of an internal battle that I've had to fight with myself. So Howard, he phoned me up, and he's at Blackburn, and he's like, "There's a position here. I need you. I'd like you to come. Will you take it?" And I felt like Jack the Ripper, because Nigel's given me a job, and I've been there at a short period, and I feel like I owe him. And this is, we talk about honesty and integrity, and that's difficult phone calls and difficult conversations. And going to Blackburn felt right for lots of different reasons. Mainly sort of because of my private personal life rather than professional ones.
Yeah.
The Leicester thing, I mean, people say, well, it's a no-brainer. Blackburn's in the Premier League, Leicester's League One. But no, it wasn't that at all. I wanted to move closer to home. And so I had the conversation with Nigel, and Nigel was, again, great human being, brilliant person. Well, you better fuck off then. You know what I mean? And he said, and we never did, and we came close a couple times, he said, we will work together again. Mark my words. So we may do in the future, but and he says, go with my blessing, sort of thing. So then, that was December 2008, and I went into Blackburn, and I met the finest left back I've ever worked with, Martin
Bruno.
Olsen.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say Bruno Giroux.
No,
Not Bruno Giroux. Bruno Berner. Bruno Berner.
Bruno was at Leicester. He'd left Blackburn. He was at Leicester by then.
Oh, really?
Bunsen, as Nigel Pearson used to call him.
Burner.
How Bunsen getting on. Yeah. So that was that. So then Blackburn, and I felt guilt about leaving Leicester. I felt bad personally. Hindsight, Blackburn was the best.
You've got to do what's right for you, though, haven't you? And that's the big thing.
I did what was right for me for the right reasons. I probably, I did let people down who had believed in me, but I did it in a way where I said, look, I need to do this, and this is why. And Nigel's brilliant. And if you're working with good people will always accept that, I think.
Of course they will.
And that's part of football, that people move on. Listen, Leicester did all right after I left, didn't they? So,
they did. They
did
on.
Maybe wouldn't have won a title if I'd stayed. So that was that. So, and then, but Blackburn was the best thing I ever did. Because we've spoken about this. It was lightning in a bottle. Everyone that was in and around Blackburn at that time that we've had on this podcast will say about how special that group of people at that time was, and that was we could talk for hours and hours about how good Blackburn was, and it was so good. But again, I would say there was a takeover.
Yeah,
why did I leave?
Yeah,
why did I leave Blackburn? The takeover happened. Sam left. Things were changing. I very much wanted to keep Blackburn at that moment special in my memory.
Yeah.
And I wanted to preserve what we had, and I didn't want it to go to kind of taint it a little bit.
I didn't want to hate the place,
which I think there was a decline after that, and things changed dramatically, and it wasn't the same. The people coming in weren't the same as the people that were there, and it was changing, wasn't it? You'd left by then.
Yeah. I left just before the takeover, so I was part of the deal to get people out to balance the books to sell the club.
Well, that was part of the challenge, wasn't it? We knew at Blackburn, in order to the priority was maintain your Premier League status. In order to do that, we had to be incredibly creative in the transfer market.
Yeah.
And we had to sell a player for a vast profit, one player a year, and just to survive. And you can say, well, that's a brilliant challenge, right? Let's do that then. So it was you and, Roque went to Man City, didn't he?
Yeah.
Phil Jones went to Manchester United. So that was the model, and you accept that.
Yeah.
But it was brilliant. And then, again, you meet people along the way, preparation and opportunity. You leave an impression on certain people. Dr. Ian McGuinness, who again has been a great constant sort of in my career, who I first came across at Newcastle, and subsequently he's now at Qatar doing great things with their national team. Fantastic. He got in touch and he said, we're going into Aston Villa. I want you to come. And that was the opportunity. And then you and I got the band back together, didn't we? So
we did get the band back together. I was made up when you walked through the door. I was delighted. When you messaged me and said, I'm coming, I was absolutely over the moon.
And it was good, wasn't it? Like the start was good.
The start was brilliant. Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a different challenge for you guys because of Alec McLeish coming across the city from Birmingham into Villa. It's just a hard thing to do, but I was made up to see you. Absolutely delighted.
And like Alec McLeish he got the shitty end of the stick. He crossed to explain to people who perhaps don't understand. He was Birmingham City manager, the great rivals of Aston Villa. Then he became straight away Aston Villa manager, and he never really
He never stood a chance.
Never stood a chance. So the first mistake you make, everybody's on him, and it's fueled by the media and all of that. And he was great. He was great with me, and he was a
Yeah.
very, very, very good manager. Great, more importantly, a great human being.
He was a
Great.
brilliant guy. I loved him. I
Yeah.
loved him as a person.
Yeah. Great, great, great person. Unfortunately, I mean, one of the things I think I could do better is keeping in touch with people, as you'll
Yeah.
testify. And I wish I'd probably kept in touch with him a little bit more. Because, I owe him a lot. Yeah, he was great for me, and we have a responsibility as staff to for the success of the manager as well.
Yes.
So you feel that, and unfortunately, and I think if had he not been previously the Birmingham City manager, I think he would have had a fairer chance at the football club, and would have probably gone on to do better in that time period, because I think he was good. I think he was really, really good, and the staff was really good
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. But you left as well after me, didn't you? So I was sort of pushed out under Paul Lambert. You stayed a little bit longer, but then you
I
sort
left.
of you left as well, didn't you? And obviously the
Yeah.
football club again was going through a difficult period. The owner was wanting to sell up, and the funds were getting cut, and there was a lot going on at the football club, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was different. Again, it was a turbulent time, I think. I left. I'd been there for 2 years, and then we played Wigan on the final game of the season, which was I think it was the year they won the FA Cup and got relegated in the same year.
Yeah.
And then I think we drew. It was one of those where Benty's been out of the team, but then he came back in and scored. And then I think so that was a Sunday. Then we were off on the Monday, and we came in on the Tuesday to give the players so I've got all of the summer programs and all the rest of it. And then I had a feeling that it was going to be the end for me, because there was meetings going on that I should have been involved in that I wasn't involved in.
Got
And I remember I was working with Dunny at the time, Richard Dunn, what a great human. Love Dunny.
Top fella.
Oh, the best. By the way, just, people talk to me about it. I said, he should have played for Real Madrid, Barcelona. I think he was that good.
He was a machine, wasn't he?
He was an absolute machine, but he had no interest in playing for Barcelona and Real Madrid. You know what I mean? I was so frustrated as his fitness coach that he didn't do all the things, but that's who he was. He wouldn't have been him if he wasn't involved.
No, he wouldn't. That was his personality.
I said to Dunny, I think I'm on my way here. He went, no chance, this and the other. Says, you better not be, And then I get a phone call at the end of that day, and it was from the manager's PA, can you come in? And he was like, I want to bring in my staff that I had at Norwich. I was allowed to bring in 2 staff at the start of this season. I want to make changes. You're on your way. And I always remember very, very early on at Newcastle, there was funny how things jump back into your mind. There was the reserve coach was a guy called Tommy Craig, Glaswegian, thick.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Great, great, great coach. Like, unbelievable, proper old school coach. But, and I say that old school not to be that he was old fashioned, but he had, he'd been there and he'd done it, and he was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And all, you ask any player who's been under him, they'll tell you, like, he was, and he said to me, is this your first job in football? I'll not try and do the Glaswegian accent. But he says, is your first job in football? Yeah. He says, you're going to get sacked one day. He says, it might not be your fault. It might be your fault, but it might not be your fault. In fact, it probably won't be your fault. Can you deal with that? And I said, do you know something I don't? Should I be, should I turn my phone off? He went, you'll be all right, son. And that was, I think 10 years later, that was the first time I got the sack. And then I felt like, I wish I had Tommy Craig's number. I said, it's happened, Tom. You were right.
As gutted as you were, you're a bit like, well.
So, and that was a new thing. I didn't know how to feel. I'd obviously moved from club to club before that, but I didn't know really how I was supposed to feel. And the thing was, what I've, the, we go back to the farm, go back to childhood, and I just thought, your dad's values, like people who get sacked because they've done something wrong in
Yeah.
my dad's world.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, fucking, will he be able to understand this? So,
Oh, you
you
were
know,
more worried about telling your dad?
I was worried about how he would react
Really?
or what he'd think about it or how it would affect him. Does that
Yeah,
make
because
sense?
he's not in the industry and he doesn't
Yes.
understand, does he? So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
in most people's world, people who get sacked because they've either been stealing something or they've done something wrong or they're not good
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
job. So
Yeah.
that was in my mind. So yeah. And then so I was like, what happens now? I came out, this is brilliant. I came out of the meeting and then I was like, I need to probably speak to HR. And
Yeah.
the manager's PA was like, she's already here. She's waiting for you. And it's
Oh,
like,
jeez.
so it's so that was fine. And I went in and she was like, have you spoken to the manager? And I went, yeah. And what did he say? So he said, I'm not quite sure. He said he wants to bring his own Norwich people. And then I was starting down, have I been sacked? And she said, I think I've been sacked. And she was like, yeah, you've been sacked. Yeah. Okay. Right. So then it was like the machine goes into operation. This is the severance terms. This is this. This is this. This is this. So I walk out the room a little bit shell shocked. First person to see is Dunny. And
Really?
it's like 6 o'clock in the evening. I was like, what are you still doing here? He's leaving the club, but he wants to play for Ireland was it the European Championships that summer?
Okay.
And he'd been out all year with a groin injury. Do you remember he had that bad groin injury?
Yeah, yeah.
And he had multiple surgeries, couldn't get it right. And he's leaving Villa, but in order to, there's some rule that if you get injured as a player, sort of within a time period after you leave the club, then the club are still on
Liable.
the hook, liable for your rehab recovery. And they were like, you need to sign something like a disclaimer to say that we're
Wow.
not on the hook for this. You know what I mean? Because for whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm off to QPR or whatever. And he's like, yeah, no. So I've said, he says, what are you doing here? I said, I've just been given the bullet. Fucking told you I was going to get the sack. And he went, what happened? He went, I said, well, I've went in and she said, because he was seeing the HR person as well, or whatever her name was. And I forget her name. That's terrible. And he said, yeah. He said, I went in there. She was like a Bond villain. All she needed was a white cat. She was on this swivel chair. I said, what did she say to you? I said, she said, have you spoken to the manager? And what did he say? He says, oh, you dickhead. You should have said, you're doing a great job. I want to give you a 5-year deal. So that was that. So then Dunny was like, come on, we're out. We'll have a drink. And I was like,
Really?
oh, yeah. So I went out with him. I was driving. I didn't have a drink because I thought if I go out the drink with Dunny, there's a very good chance I might never be seen again. So, but he was brilliant. Great guy. And so we shared that moment together. And then I guess about a week later, I'm cleaning out my apartment in Birmingham, and I get a text off the great Dave Fever.
Ah.
And Dava has texted me, he says, you will get a phone call. Keep your phone on. You're getting a phone call in 15 minutes. And that was it. And I was like, what? Very clandestine. And it was, turned out I didn't get a phone call, got a text. It was Simon Grayson. And he
Okay.
was at Preston. And he said, looking for a fitness coach. Can you come in on Monday? He said, sorry, I can't call you. I'm in a place with bad reception and not, which probably wasn't true. You know, he just didn't fancy the phone call. Probably heard that I never shut up. So I went in on the Monday to see Simon and Preston, and he was like, we had a conversation. Really liked him. Him and Snod.
He's a great guy, Larry.
Yeah.
And so Snods as well.
Snod.
Snods is great.
Snods, what a great. And he said, right, so we had a conversation, just a chat. And he went, right, can you give us 10 minutes to talk about you? And he said, you can go and get a coffee if you want. There's a coffee place sort of down there. He says, mine's a, whatever it was, mine's a cappuccino and he wants a black coffee or something. I was like, does my potential employment depend on whether or not I get you a coffee? And he's like, potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So off I went. I thought, oh, and it felt good.
It's a good
felt
sign that
right.
you've got to get them a coffee because it means you've got to walk back into the room.
Yeah. But if I give them a coffee and they say, no, you're not for us, then that would be entirely in keeping with the way they were. And they said, like, do you fancy it? And it was, it was a third of the salary of Villa, but it was just what I needed. It was just what I needed. And brilliant, brilliant, brilliant time at Preston. League One again. And it was all of these different characters. Some had been conference footballers who were playing up, and some had been Premier League academy players who that was where they were. Like John Welsh had been at Tranmere and was, Then there was like the bigger name players like Kev Davis who were coming down. So it was that mix, and it was just fun, and it was very, very like Blackburn, and I loved it. But then Toronto came knocking. Ryan Nelson, our friend, came knocking, and there was a sort of understanding that if he'd become a coach and if he asked, I would sort of go along as his fitness coach, and he asked, and I was like, God, and it was the same as the Leicester situation when I went to Blackburn. I loved Preston, and people had given me a job, and now I'm sort of turning my back on them 6 months later. But again, they were brilliant, and they were like, you gotta go. And that was that. And he was like, right, so.
The thing is, what you have to understand, and this is like a difficult one, is like you've been a Premier League coach, fitness coach. So when you're going into League One, they're thinking, we can't believe how lucky we are to have someone of your expertise and quality and worked with high-end players for so long. So they know at some point, and like you've just said there, you're on a third of your salary. You're going to move at some point because there's going to be an offer.
Yeah.
They just get you at the right time where you're in a transitional period where you're out of work, but you know something else is going to pop up. Let's lean on him as much as we can. Let's get the best out of him while we can. But they know you're going to move on.
Yeah, I think so. And I know I spoke to Dave Fever about it afterwards, and it was like, I think Larry had texted him and went, okay, no, your mate didn't last long, did he? I was there like 6 months or something, and he was like, but it was tongue in cheek. And obviously, I worked with Larry again at Sunderland years later, and that he's brilliant guy. Snod's brilliant guy. So yeah, Toronto, which we spoke about with Ryan Nelson a couple of weeks ago, a while ago now.
By the way, you've gone from the pull of the farm to going as far away from the farm as you can possibly go.
Yeah, and then even further. But again, it's that push-pull. I've always had that. Maybe that was, the Merchant Navy thing when I was 18 years old, that I wanted to see the world and experience different things and see different things and go. But then I had the push, pull. I had all of that going on. That's always been within me. And Jesus, I live in Los Angeles now.
I know.
So, and that still goes on. That's still happening.
But you're still going back to the farm in April, aren't you?
Yeah. So, in 2 weeks' time, I'll be off back to the farm, lambing time. There's an inherent part of me that's always going to be there. And I'm always going to go back to there. And it's sort of how far away I am and how long I am away for, I'll always go back. There's always that. I'm on an elastic band with that farm, in a way, and it always pulls me back in, and for different lengths of time. So yeah.
But you had a couple of spells in the MLS, didn't you?
Yeah.
You left Toronto, went to Chicago.
Yeah. So again,
and then you met your new lady, your wife.
Yeah. Don't ever go to Chicago, I tell people, because the first woman I met in Chicago, I ended up marrying her. It's a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chicago, Frank Yallop phoned me up. his goalkeeping coach, a guy called Aaron Hyde, was a Villa fan, and um, he knew that I'd left Toronto, so he was aware through, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
so he says, "Oh, the fitness coach available from Toronto," because they were looking for a fitness coach. So he phoned me up, come to Chicago, have a look. And then I met Mark Bircham. M
Yeah, yeah.
Me and Birch, we had what a year we had in Chicago. The club was a shambles. Club was an absolute shambles.
Was it?
Organisation didn't have a clue. It was a team that had been, great in 1998, but hadn't
Yeah.
really developed since then. So we've gone in and done the best we could with what we had. And things have moved on there now, but it was like, fuck hell, this is the it was just, should have seen the gym. The gym was like the size of a fucking matchbox, and it was like trying to get the players and recruit, and but it was Chicago, so it was
You
fun.
you let it go a bit.
And Birch was brilliant. Me and Birch lived together, and we are the odd couple. We are
Yeah.
the absolute odd couple. He is unbelievably cockney, flamboyant, uh, really, really, really out there. Just what a brilliant, brilliant one of we, we Jamie and I speak about this, and we have this thing. It's like, if you were in like trouble, someone got arrested, and it wasn't nothing to do, nothing
Yeah.
to do with you. It was like wrongful arrest, and you were in trouble wherever you were in the world. Who would you phone? And you had one phone call. Who would you phone? I'd phone Birch all the time because he's just brilliant, and he's incredibly well connected.
Yeah.
But he'd get you out. Birch would get you out, no doubt, and he'd probably get an apology off the president of the country wherever you were at, and he'd probably get you some. But yeah, me and him were just, and he remains a very, very close friend to this day, and I love him. But we're kind of polar opposites. But yeah, we were out. We played Vancouver Whitecaps, and we're in Chicago, and we got beat late goal, and I'm taking it. Oh, fucking, and we're in Chicago, and it is St. Paddy's Day in Chicago, which is special. Dye the river green. They're all Irish.
Yeah.
None of them are Irish. We're all Irish. You're not Irish. You're American. Right. So Birch goes, right, we're out. Come on, mopey bollocks, you're out. And I'm like, no, I'm not going out. I don't feel like a load of shit, bollocks. How can we cough up a goal like that? He's like, don't be shut up, you muppet. So Birch drags me out, and he's already like, there's a line. It's a place called Bub City, which is this. It's a cowboy
Being
karaoke bar. Well, it's a great place, isn't it? Everybody knows Bub City. If you ever go to Chicago, you've got to go to Bub City. So there's a big line outside Birch again, straight to the front. I know the owner. How do you know the owner? We've only been here a week. So we get in and we get a table, and we've got the last table in things, and then these two girls walk past, and one of them fancies Birch, I think. So she sat down talking to Birch, and her mate comes and sits down next to me, and we start talking. And she can't understand a word I'm saying because I'm north of England, and it's loud so we end up like, do you fancy going for some tea on Tuesday? And then that's it. Ended up getting married. That was that.
crazy.
Yeah, brilliant.
Hey, and you're punching
Oh, Jason, mate. Jason punching.
massively.
Yeah. And I know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she's great. She's great. But there's a reason why I didn't get married till I was 40.
Yeah. Waiting for the right one.
Yeah, and then that all of that stuff. But yeah, she's brilliant. She has a lot to put up with, I think, sometimes. So
Very true.
I'm very, very grateful for her. So
Well,
then
Go
Chicago,
on, because I was going to say we haven't got long left, so you'll have to
Yeah.
get through this quick.
right? Chicago come towards the end. I nearly went to West Ham. Macca phoned me up about going to West Ham before I went to Toronto.
Right.
Sam had left, obviously. Sam subsequently left West Ham and was sort of half retired, wasn't he? Then I saw that he'd went into Sunderland, so I just texted him and said, glad to see you back in the game. All the best. You're going to get a text, where are you? Stop fucking about. We've got a job on here. get back and all the rest of it.
Really?
And that was, that was me coming, Chicago came to an end, and off I went to Sunderland, and that was brilliant. Mate, it was exactly the same as when we first walked into Blackburn. That
Yeah.
the club are dead and buried. Dick Advocat had been the manager, I think, and it wasn't, the systems and procedures, and Sam just did Sam things, and he was like, said to me, you know why you're here, you know what your job is.
Yeah.
Little bit of guidance wouldn't go amiss.
Yeah.
Get in there, get it sorted out. This is what I want. Brilliant. And
Yeah.
it was history repeating itself. And I said to the staff around, you don't know this, but I've lived this before, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to survive in this league with one game left. And that's exactly what happened. We beat Everton 3-0 and survived in the penultimate game of the Premier League. And it was, the similarities between the Blackburn and the Sunderland story
Yeah.
were it was like history repeating itself. Then Sam obviously goes on to the England job. David Moyes comes in. Similar sort of story to what we had at Aston Villa, where the owner is now starting to reduce.
Yeah.
Interest is starting to wane, which means that there's less money going in, which I understand, because he's had lots and lots and lots and lots of managers who've spent lots and lots and lots and
Yeah.
lots of money without success. So there's I kind of get that. But then we get relegated, and then there's another relegation, and then that was the end of Sunderland, and then that's when China happened. I popped over to China.
Yeah, that was in COVID, wasn't it? So it was probably well, just before, and then carried over, didn't it?
Yeah, same thing again. Opportunities come along your way. And
Who knows you in China, by the way, to give you a call?
Brunny, believe it or not.
Incredible, isn't it?
Ian Brunskill,
who we've worked with at Blackburn.
At Blackburn again. Blackburn has been the thread ever since then of within that. So yeah, Brunny phoned me up. He texted me like 10 o'clock at night. What are you doing? Not doing anything really. I'd been out. To be fair, I'd been out of work for a while then, more than a year. I'd been out of work for more than a year, and this is why we ended up in Los Angeles. Was we'd taken a decision. Jamie still had her career ambitions, and she's really, really good at a job, and she'd put her career on hold to come to Sunderland. Sunderland had been great in the beginning, and then it died a death, and it was right. We'll give it 6 months to get another club. And I'd had conversations with other teams and what have you, but nothing really came of them. Well, nothing came of them at all for different reasons. And then we had a conversation about Jamie's career and what she wanted to do. And I thought it's incredibly selfish of me just to have her sat here waiting for me to get a job. And I was like, so what do you want to do? What would your ideal career look like? And she said, well, I'd want to live in Los Angeles. Just because, can I just stop you there? You've never been to Los Angeles, have you? I've been twice. I hated it. It was shit. It's hot. She went, no, because we played at LA Galaxy. She went, no, you've been to Carson. That's not. She wanted to work for a company that she'd worked for previously, Home Team Sports, because she works in the commercial sports sector. And she said, I would want the job as an account executive. And whether you believe in all this stuff, the universe and all of these things, I think it's preparation and opportunity. Literally 2 weeks after we had that conversation, the company that she'd worked for previously were coming over to London for the Red Sox. Boston Red Sox were playing the Yankees at West Ham.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And they do all the commercial stuff for them, right? So they got in touch, said, oh, you're living in England, we're going to be in London, come and see us and we'll have a drink and hang out and all that shit. She was like, I really need to do this. So we went down to London, and I did a typical Lammy thing. I went to the Natural History Museum, and she went off and met all her mates and everything. She come back, she said, I've been offered a job. And I was like, what do you mean you've been offered a job? I thought you were going for a coffee. And she said, I've been offered it. So that was it, right? Decision made. We're going to Los Angeles. And
Wow.
then around about the same time, Brunny phoned me up, Ian Brunskill, phoned me up about this opportunity to work in China with the national team there. So um, I went and did that. That was pre-COVID. And then COVID happened. So there was a little bit of shuttling backwards and forwards and,
Yeah, yeah.
the idea was if it was going to be a national team job, then obviously it's different to working for a team
Mm,
because you get to come back
yeah.
between camps. There's camps, and then I would be back to LA, and everything would be fine. But COVID happened. We were in a bubble. This is the difficult part of the job is especially when you coach is separation. You've experienced this, I'm sure, is separation from your family. So we were apart for the longest we were apart was a year and a day. I left LA on the 15th of June and landed back on the 16th of June the following year. And we'd been apart all that time. But that was COVID, that's it. That's part of the sacrifices you make to do the job that you're doing. But
Yeah.
so that was that. So I was with that national team program for a couple of years, and I left there 2022, and that
And
was
and now you're doing coaching with younger kids in the US, aren't you? And little
yeah.
bits of performance related stuff as well.
Yeah, so myself and Tom Elliott, who previously played for Leeds, Millwall, had a great career in that. We connected through a mutual friend out in Los Angeles, and we looked at some of the coaching and we thought we could do it slightly differently. So we're trying to impose, it's not the right, to transplant some of the ways that we would train in England
Yeah.
into Los Angeles, working with small groups of talented young players to try and elevate their game, to try and give them a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be a player in because everybody watches the Premier League, everybody talks about the Premier League, everybody's favourite
Yeah.
team is probably a Premier League team out in LA. And we're just looking at doing that. Alongside that, I do some consultancy with Dave Hancock and Apollo. So
Yeah.
I do quite a bit with them. And then, I just work privately with different individuals and organizations. So it's good. It's nice. It's nice now. I loved what I did with teams. I've had opportunities to go back in. I had one fairly recently. I was having a coffee with Robbie Elliott last week, who was a player I worked with at Newcastle, and he's now in Los Angeles now, and he does amazing, fantastic stuff we're definitely going to get him on the podcast because he does some
Yeah.
unbelievable
Absolutely.
in high performance, and you wouldn't believe some of the people that he works with. But we talk about the football things, and he says it best. He says it's nice to be able to just phone somebody up and say, "Do you fancy getting a coffee tomorrow?" and being able to do it. Whereas if you're in the game, you say, "Yeah, I can see you in about 8 months' time," because you're
Yeah.
just working. You're on
Too
the
busy.
treadmill, working, working, working.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I'm at now. I think that's, it's nice. Jamie's doing really, really well at her work. Um, she's incredibly successful career-wise. So I'm looking out the window now. It is going to be 94 degrees on Wednesday. The sun is
God.
shining. The palm trees are swaying in the breeze. So, but
Yeah, you've done all right, mate.
I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation, but if I get to come back, I'd like to come back as me, please. That'd be good.
Brilliant. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Mate, I've loved that. Absolutely loved it.
Did you learn anything that you didn't know?
No, not really. I think
Little
No, I think the only thing is just, I think there's just an element of, I think the side of your relationship with your dad is like so strong and it means so much to you. I think there's an element of you'd love to be closer to home, and there's an element of guilt of being away, but you should never feel guilty about that because
Yeah,
it's your life is what it is, and it's an amazing life. And your dad would be like, and well, I know he will. He's so proud of you of what you've done
yeah.
and where you are and what you're doing.
Don't
And it's
don't
important when you go back that you enjoy that time with him, isn't it?
don't get me wrong. After literally 4 or 5 hours of me and my dad being together, we're like,
Yeah.
calm. Yeah, but yeah, that was it's probably the biggest influence in my life, I would think. But yeah, no, you did
Yeah, yeah,
right. You did right.
yeah.
You've met me dad, haven't you?
Once,
Yeah.
once I
Used to
can't
come. Used
remember.
to, he
Yeah,
used.
it was
It
one of
was
the
either.
games.
Yeah, he used to come down to the games. He used to love coming to the Blackburn games.
Yeah, it was at a Blackburn game. I think it was in
Yeah.
I think it was in the lounge after one of the games, and
Oh,
yeah.
There's. I just want to finish on this. We've gone over time, and I love to talk, but this is football in a nutshell, right? So we had a game. I can't remember and it was one of those ones where we've done well, and Sam's gone, right, you're off till Thursday. And everyone's gone, yeah, apart from me and Audi gone, oh, fucking hell. That right. We're gonna have to make some stuff. So we're gonna have to address some fitness issues right now in the next 30 seconds. So it was one of those ones where I've gone, right, Gaffer, we need to run these. Yeah, fucking do what you want. Fucking I'm off, sort of thing. So I was like, right, lads, in order to qualify for your time off, we need to do. And everybody was happy, They're happy to. Nobody likes doing running after a game unless you got a
Unless you
few
get some,
days off afterwards. My dad's come down. My dad's come down for the game, and I'm going to meet him in the lounge afterwards. So I'm running the players, and because we're off for it, it's not just the normal running after the game. There's a little bit more than that. So we've put a bit on it. It's a tough session, and it's gone on for like, I want to say like half an hour, maybe half an hour we've done. And then I'm mindful my dad's in the lounge, and because we've got these days off, everybody's got off. So I've quickly showered and I've gone in, and I go in the lounge, and there's two people in the lounge. There's me dad, and there's El Hadji Joof. Right?
jeez.
Can you imagine two more diverse backgrounds? And Joofy is sat with me dad, and I've no idea what they're talking about, but they're into it, and they're having a great conversation. They're laughing and having fun. And Joofy's got his family in the corner, and he's half like left them alone, and he's talking, and he's bought me dad a pint, and he's seen me come in, and he's gone, right, I'm off, see you, and he's gone off, and I've went, what's gone off there? Like what's going on there? He came and he said, oh, Lammy's running the players, so he says, I'll just sit with you and stay with you until he comes in. And he said,
That, isn't it?
and from that moment then, if anyone said anything bad about El Hadj Diouf, my dad jumped to his defense. He's a great lad. Doofy.
Really?
Don't you? Yeah. He's a mate of mine. It's like,
Best mate.
but that's football, innit? That's the great thing. All the people that we've met from all the different backgrounds and continue to meet, that's the best thing about the game. That's the best thing about the game.
Follow us on social media and YouTube at Strain on the Game. Subscribe, like, and follow.